Hello students, today we will have lesson 3 of Flat Stanley. Last lesson we talked about chapter 1. Let's have a chapter 1 summary. Do you remember what a summary is? When we make something really long shorter. In chapter 1, Stanley becomes flat when a big bulletin board falls on him. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop, take him to the doctor for a checkup. His health is fine, so Mrs. Lambchop changes the size of Stanley's clothes so they can fit his flat body. Are we flat? Let's look at different shapes. There are 2D and 3D shapes. First line is 2D shapes: triangle, rectangle, circle. The bottom line is 3D shapes: cube, cuboid, cone. If I asked you, what shape do you look like? 2D or 3D? 2D shapes only have front and back, like a paper. 3D shape have front, back, left, right, top, and bottom. Do you know the answer now? So, if 2D shapes are like paper and 3D shapes are more like a computer, what shapes do you think are flat? If you guessed 2D, you are correct. Before we begin chapter 2, let's discuss how Dr. Dan tells us Stanley is very flat. Dr. Dan uses a simile. A simile is when you compare two things that aren't alike but are similar by using words like or as. For example, as brave as a lion. When we call someone as brave as a lion, does that mean they are a lion? No, that means they are just as brave and strong as a lion. That is a simile. Now, let me show you where we can find the simile in chapter 1. Turn to page 5. Look at line 1 and line 2. Gosh, said Arthur, Stanley's flat. As a pancake, said Mr. Lambchop. So, Stanley is as flat as a pancake. Look at the picture on the right. Those are the delicious pancakes. But look at their shape. They are flat. Very, very flat. So, Arthur is as flat as a pancake. That is a simile. Now, let's talk about characters. Characters are the people in a story. In this story, the characters we have met in chapter 1 are Stanley Lambchop, the boy who becomes flat; Arthur Lambchop, Stanley's younger brother; Mr. Lambchop, Stanley's father; Mrs. Lambchop, Stanley's mother; Dr. Dan, Stanley's doctor. Let us start and read what happens in chapter 2. Stanley enjoys being flat because he can do things nobody else can. He helps Mrs. Lambchop get her ring from the shaft and even travels to California in an envelope. This makes Arthur very jealous. After reading this, what are some things that Stanley can do, but you cannot? Let's look at chapter 3. Mr. Lambchop takes the boys out on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Stanley only gets a little wet, while Arthur gets fully wet. Mr. Lambchop sees that Arthur is jealous of Stanley and tells him to be nice to his younger brother. Stanley offers to be a kite to cheer Arthur up, but things don't go well when Stanley gets stuck on the tree. Trees are so tall. Imagine Stanley being stuck on a tall tree, looking down, being scared, and nobody can help him. No. Here are some questions I want you to think about. First, do you think it is right for Arthur to be jealous? Is jealousy a good thing or a bad thing? Second, would you like to be flat? Why? What is something that you can do if you were flat, but you can't do now? Number 3, what new adventures do you think Stanley will have in the next chapters? In chapter 2 and 3, Stanley helped his mummy take the ring back from the shaft, traveled to California in an envelope, became a kite, and flew in the sky. What do you think will happen next? Now, do the Google form and let's see how much you understood.